All right, we are live. Amber Martinez, welcome to the future of fitness.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. It's been a while, so I'm happy that we're making this happen.
Yeah, me too. And, I love doing these recordings on Fridays because I'm always in a good mood. It's just a great way to kind of learn something going into the weekend and hang out with cool people, smart people, and learn stuff. And it's a great perk of the job here. But let's start with this, Amber. As always, if you don't mind, actually, before we do that, let me set the table here. So we're going to talk a lot today about people, right? People within organizations, how they really are the most important resource we have as business owners and operators and executives, because without them, it's really hard to be successful. So how do you find great ones? How do you keep great ones? How do you improve the great ones that you have and continue to, make sure that they're growing and staying happy and being fulfilled within the role? And that's a lot of art, a little bit of science, I'm sure, but that's something that you really have honed in on and specialized in within gym wellness brands. And we're going to pick your brain here a little bit. So that's the table set. Amber, if you don't mind, just give us a little bit of your background and then we'll take it from there.
Absolutely. And I love that table setting. Happy to be at your table on this Friday with you, Eric.
Yeah, all right.
And I love to talk about people because I built this incredible career that I'm really proud of, just really focused on people. And my career started many years ago, we'll say over 2 decades ago, when I started working at the front desk in fitness. And that I found fitness because of my own personal journey. I had gained a lot of weight as a teenager. Those main developmental years for a woman are tough as they come, right? And so to gain over 100 pounds from 14 to 17 was really challenging, but also incredibly rewarding because it shaped my life and who I am today. So at about 17 years old, I decided I just didn't want to live that way anymore. I didn't want to give my life away. And now when I look back in reflection, I'm so proud of that young woman who made that decision. So I started working the front desk at the gym. I think they hired me because they were like, wow, you have a lot of enthusiasm. We want people to feel the way about the gym you do. And I really had no idea because I wasn't aware of my strengths or my purpose or my passion at that time. But it came to me very quickly. So I worked the front desk. I was the best towel folder, the best greeter. I took that job very seriously because I was so proud to be a part of something that I always knew was meaningful. And from that role as a front desk person, people would come in at night when there weren't any salespeople and they would ask, what does it take to get started? And because I cast this vision of how incredible it was at the gym and how it was going to change their lives, it just started giving me their credit card numbers. And so the sales team would come in the morning with credit card slips that had about $100 on them because I figured I'd overheard. It was about that much to get started. And shortly thereafter, you can imagine the regional and VP team came down and had a meeting with me. I thought I was in trouble and they just said, you shouldn't be at the front desk. You should be in sales. And I said, ew, no way. I don't want to do sales. That's gross. I just like talking to people. And they said, that's awesome. We just want you to do that, but we're going to teach you some things. We're going to develop some skills and you're going to make more money. And I said, okay, I'll try it out. But if I decide I want to go back to the front desk, I can do that, right? And they said, absolutely, you can do that. And that's where it all started, right? So from front desk to sales management, general manager. My first job as a general manager was taking over the most underperforming gym in the West region. And I remember asking, I thought you guys like me. I thought I was doing a good job. Why would you give me that gym? And they said, because if you can't fix it, we're not sure anyone can. And that's all you had to tell me at that point, right? So moved over and within 6 months of being a new general manager, turned the club around. It was profitable. The team was humming and the company was excited. So I kind of found my role as a fixer. So Crunch moved me around, had me hold all the kind of fixer roles, moving in, developing teams, improving the business. And, I didn't really know how I did it. I just did it. I did it through people and experiences. And then I realized early on I had to kind of had to figure out, actually a mentor told me, if you want to grow in your career, you have to know exactly what it is that you're doing so you can scale it and teach others. So I spent a good amount of time figuring out what it is that I do. And it's all people, all experience, some systems and some process, right? And then, of course, measuring the success metrics to make sure that what we're doing is working and driving the business. But that always came last because if you do the right things, then the profit usually comes. So then that was, the role. They offered me a sole facilitator role. I onboarded all new hires with enthusiasm and taught them the values and the reason why they wanted to be a part of Crunch, created new training and onboarding. And I did that for many years, over a decade. And then I was offered a vice president role. Mr. Jim Rowley came in and said, I think you're ready for a new opportunity. And they offered me a vice president role. And so I became a VP at 4 stores. Those stores turned into 12 and then turned into 35. And that became a big exit for us and did very well with the Yoga Works brand. And then they brought me back to Crunch. And I worked at Crunch, created a department, culture and engagement, repositioned the company and the brand where we're at, worked really closely with HR, marketing, and some subject matter experts at Crunch. I was really proud of that role as well. A lot of the initiatives still exist today. And then in 2018, I joined the franchise side of the house and started as a director of operations. Then I moved into vice president of sales, which was a role that they created for me based on my impact on the business. And it was interesting because I think about how I started. I said, ew, sales, no. And then becoming the very first vice president of sales for Crunch franchise, pretty full circle moment and really honored, and held that role for a couple of years, got us through COVID. And then decided to go and support some of my friends over at a different brand. I was a chief operating officer at Pound for a while. And then I talked to Jim Rowley, my mentor, and he said, I think it's time for you to come back and I have some great guys for you to meet. And he introduced me to the team at Gem. And that was almost 3 years ago, where I am now the brand president and operating partner at Gem Wellness Brands, overseeing the one and only best brand in fitness, Crunch Fitness. So that's my story. I don't know how long that took, but I really tried to capture it all in the shortest amount of time without seaming up my glasses, because I get very passionate.
Yeah.
And yeah, that happens. It's real. So
that was excellent. That was roughly, and I pay attention to these things because obviously I do a lot of podcasts, but I train a lot of executives on podcasts, and that was about 5 minutes, right? And that was a well orchestrated origin story, people. If you want to know how a good one example, and that was excellent. And I want to go back on some of these things. And by the way, whenever I do this stuff on the other end, when I'm talking that much, I get out of breath. Like, I don't know if you do, but I get out of breath like a lot. I was doing a webinar the other day and I was like, dang.
It's a workout. I don't think people realize.
I thought I was in good shape, dude. And
hit a podcast talking about something that you're passionate about, or that's the thing I do. I don't think I take a breath. And I also, the enthusiasm and passion just comes out of me and fogs up my glasses. But you know what? You just got to roll with.
I want to go back to some of the stuff that you mentioned in your story and get into that. You became a fixer, right?
Yes.
What are the things, if you're going to take, like, I know each case is different, but if you're going to take a wide swath and look at, like, in operating health clubs and gyms, when fixing comes into the picture, what are the most common things that need to get fixed?
The people, and this is what I will tell you. It is not going to be, and you talk about the art and the science, and I'm a lot of art, but I'm also a little science. It's rarely the four wall, and it's the people and the mindset. It is the training and development to identify who we are, what are we doing, why are we doing it, and getting everybody rowing in the same direction, right? And rowing in the direction because they understand it, they believe in it, and they're contributing to it. And then it's the experience. What's the experience we're creating for our internal customers, our team? And what's the external experience we're creating for our members and our community? Those are and then obviously systems and process. And some people will say systems run the business. I believe people run the business, and the systems support the people in running a great business. So those are the three things that I have found consistently over my long and rewarding career, taking over many underperforming businesses. It was never really anything that anyone could do it. You just have to go in with the right lens and not overcomplicate it, right? So it's people, experiences, and process. I created an acronym, actually, because I created training manuals for Crunch when I was in my culture and engagement role. And I created the onboarding with obviously other team members, kind of led it with other team members. And part of the onboarding, we broke it down. And I found an acronym, and it was REPS. And I was very excited about that, Eric.
Yeah, I like it. All fitness people like that.
Hey. Yeah. And it was relationships, which is the people piece I'm talking about, internal and external, experiences, processes, and success metrics. I had to hyphen that one, but it worked. And that's really the formula. You get in and you focus on those things. You do them well and you do them right and you stay consistent. 9 times out of 10, you can turn it around.
Yeah. Let's come back to that in a minute. And So in your career, you seem to have oscillated between like operations and sales, which to most people you would look at if you've been in business or if you've gone through like business school, they're like, no, that's different people. You can't do that. You can't have an operations and be like engineering and sales would be even worse, right? But like when you look at operate, like what is that true? Like when you look at an operations role and then you look at a sales role, are they two different things? Are they more similar than people think? Are they treated, differently, unfairly? Like what do you think the relationship is between those two things?
Yeah, I think when you separate those two things, I think you compromise your success because your salespeople can't just think about sale. Because what happens after you bring the member, the customer, the client in? You must serve them through exceptional operations. So you have to care about both. And when you care about one, I can train you how to care about the other. And the reality is when you get the right people in the right roles, trained properly, like our team, we have an all-in mindset. There's no such thing as not my job. So I just have to find the right people with the right mindset and then give them the right tools and training and the right vision. And then they understand how the whole business functions. And then they care about the whole business. And then we drive far better results because we're not stuck in a lane or a silo that's thinking, oh, these two things are separate. The reality is they're not. Everybody's selling, everybody's serving. And we have to be focused on those two things because they're equally as important.
When you look at an org chart, and I do with like the finger quotes, right?
Yes.
Like I've always found that to be an interesting thing because it feels like just by looking at it, by definition, you're putting people in silos, right? Do you look at a traditional org chart? Do you use org charts or is that thing that's maybe a little antiquated? I don't know.
No, I use an org chart. I do because I think it's important for people to understand the roles and responsibilities that are within our organization and they have to know who to go to for what. So it's important that we define that, right? Having that clarity is really important for the team. That goes along with having the vision. But what I have a vice president of operations and they're responsible for the full four walls of the business from how we perform in our KPIs, our sales, the training and development of the team members, the onboarding, the culture, the member experience, the facilities, all of it. They're responsible for all of it. And I want that person. It's interesting because as growing up, it's like, oh, you're either going to be a specialist or a generalist. And I didn't like either of those because I'd ever want to be put in a box. And so what I look for in my business is really a generalist that if I had to identify, it's like you have to understand the full business. And then you obviously can have skills that maybe are weighted heavier in one area, but then I give you the support and the tools and the direction. And we also support you with other team members, right? That now we all elevate each other. But we have to all understand the full business. I'll give you an example. Right now, my I do have a VP of personal training, but personal training is pretty, right? It's unique. And I need somebody that really understands and can get into that business. But he's out in the Milwaukee market today with my personal training leaders and my general managers. And they're in the same training, learning the same content, and it's all the business. It's who we are, it's culture, it's attributes, and then it's breaking down service and how to build value and overcome objections. And so they're all in this room right now as we speak, all learning together because I don't want them learning separately. I want them to take full ownership and understand how it all works together.
Awesome. Let's get into one of the big topics that you and I had discussed in preparation for this podcast, which I'm really excited about because so many people that I know, especially in the franchise space, who get a couple locations going and then they have, their eyes get big and they want to get to 100, 200. They want to franchise or they want to scale corporately or they want to do whatever, a licensing model, whatever it is, whatever the model is, they see the path to scaling. The hardest thing when I talk to these types of people, when they go from like 2 to 3 to 10 and more is the culture, and the quality.
Yeah.
Right? The experience. And that's a really hard thing to scale. And that's something that you've been focusing on for, numerous years within your different roles. So, to take it a really big question and leave it open to you is how do you scale good culture? How do you scale that up as you grow?
That's such a good question. I'm so glad that you asked me that. And I have found in my career, either working with my own individual teams or working with colleagues or supporting franchisees in the franchise network, because that was my role at, Crunch as the vice president of sales. I got in, I helped franchisees build their business. I found that business leaders have a strategy for growth. and for scale and how to drive year over year performance growth. And we think about people, of course, but it too often fails to make the full strategy. And so people and culture as a strategy is my recommendation. And there is science behind this. And a lot of people talk about culture and culture and people being intangible. And the reality is it's actually measurable. There's now data that supports what I've been preaching for many years. About, I think it's about 21%, 21% stronger profitability in companies that are dedicated to people and culture. So take that and tell me that's not tangible, right? And so
say that again.
What's that?
Say that again.
21% stronger profitability within companies who focus on people and culture. It is no longer intangible. You can there's studies and research that have taken companies and looked at companies that are dedicated to people, and people and culture make their strategy, right? They incorporate it into their strategy. Those businesses on average see about 21% more profitability than companies that do not. There are a lot of other stats. I can talk about this too.
I love it.
I have to have that. I can't just come in with all the sparkle and enthusiasm and belief in people. And yes, it is contagious, and people want to feel the way that I feel about business. But it's important to be able to go in and say, let me show you the data. Let me show you the graphs, how we're impacting the business month over month. Let me show you what my training plan is. Let me talk about what my expectations will be. Then let's track that now for the next 3 months and let me prove that out. And so that's where businesses need to go. You can't just talk about being people-focused, culture-driven. You must be about it consistently, and you cannot abandon it. And I see a lot of it gets exciting, and you have the rewards and you have the contests, and you go out and you talk about your business and how much you care about people. But it tends to be the first thing that business leaders let go of, because you might worry, or there's stress or pressure, and you're looking at your KPIs, and then your decision making you don't pump the brakes to stop and think, how is this going to impact our does it align with our strategy and the commitment that we've made? Does it align with our business attributes and the standards that we've set? And if you just take that moment, because I know we're moving fast and we don't want to miss a beat and we got to grow. But if you take that moment and you make sure that you stay true to who you said you wanted to be, you're going to go further faster. And so you have to build the culture and the people into your strategy, and there are tactics to do that, right? And we can talk about that if you want to go down that road today to talk about specifics.
Yes.
But you also have to find business leaders who live it, breathe it, and believe in it, because you need a driver on that bus, right?
Yeah. I want to get into all the tactics. I mean, it's when you do like a business model, right? You model out a business, you're like, okay, this looks good. We can scale this. This is, profitable, it's scalable, all those things. You rarely on those spreadsheets do you have people. And even if you did, it would just be like, I would just say people and culture. And it would be like, well, what does that mean? That's rather ubiquitous, right? Like, or rather vain. Like, how do you bring that in? Like, strategically, tactically, what questions do you ask yourself? What systems do you put in place to make sure that the culture is consistent, that you're pumping the brakes, like you said, at the right times to ask those questions? And what are the questions that you ask at those moments? So yeah, tactically, how do you keep this going?
Yeah, it's funny because I think about how many board decks have I created, and it's like the people piece. And, you're like, okay, let's go. Let's elaborate. What does it mean? Let's get tactical. Let's create projects. So it's just like any other overarching strategy. You walk in, you closing out a year, you're planning for the year ahead, you're looking at your business, you're looking at your financials, you're looking at your people, you have your people reports, you're looking at your attrition, you're looking at your internal promotions, and then what have I developed this year that has fed or fueled the people and culture component of what we do? And you're analyzing that just as much as you are your new member units, just as much as you are your PTEFT growth, just as much as you are your lead growth, your marketing plan. You're looking at that and you're dedicating time just as you would any other core area of your business. And to me, I start with what we're doing with people first, because if I don't have that figured out, then I don't have anything figured out. So people are at the core of everything that I do. And so I look at my leaders, my people, my, again, internal promotions, my attrition level. And I've dug into that all year long to understand the why, the what, the who, the how. And then as I'm business planning for the year ahead, I am looking and saying, okay, what really worked for us this year? What did people really gravitate towards? What people on my team have really succeeded? Now, let me go and get with them and talk about what it is that you're doing. I learn from my general managers. When I look at the reports and I see really strong performance, really strong closing, execution of the systems, very high iPad utilization, right? They're bought in, they're executing. Strong crunch one kickoffs booked at point of sale, leading the network. Then I'm going, hey guys, talk to me about what you're doing now. Because I want to scale that. Because you've proven that it could be done at your level as a general manager. Now let me hear from you what you're doing tactically. And then I'm going to build that into my plan. And what my plan consists of is training and development, rewards and recognition, internal promotions, coaching and accountability. So it's basic fundamental things. And I can share with you, just to take one step back and give you a couple of examples of things that we've implemented over the last year that have been phenomenal. Is most companies get off track when they have not defined who they are, what they stand for, what's important to them, what is their differentiator. And even in a franchise organization, yes, you represent this incredible brand that you get to be a part of. And there's all these wonderful things that come along with that. But your group must stand for something that you all can get behind and believe in. At GEM, that is 100% our commitment. And that makes me so proud. So we went in, we formed a committee, and it was a people project. And then we realized the people isn't really a project. It's an ongoing thing where we run different projects to fuel and support the people. But what we did was we identified attributes at a core level, at a leader level. So core level, individual contributor, leader level, leader of others, executive level, leader of leaders. And we defined the attributes at each of these levels, because what we can do is very easy. I can talk to you, Eric, and I can very easily say, oh, go find people that match our DNA. Oh, when you're interviewing, find people that are aligned with our values. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a thing. I don't know what that means.
And hey, what? Eric, you're really, I really don't know him.
No, I really don't. Yeah.
So we know that as business leaders, it's our responsibility to tell them what that means, to show them what that means. So we designed our attributes at every level, and then we designed training to support that. So that when we say, hey, business leaders at the club level, you're going to go out and you're going to find the future of GEM. And this is how you're going to do it. And this is what that means. And this is the scorecard for the interview process. These are the questions you're going to ask. And so that, it changed the game from the level of confidence our managers have, their commitment to GEM and who we are, and then their ability to attract and select the future of GEM has really shifted over the last year. And it's been incredibly rewarding. We also, established standards. And there's just 3 of them because we don't want to make it too difficult. But it's what do we stand for? And these are 3 things that we can teach everyone. And then they can uphold them. And then when you're coaching and holding people accountable, you can just refer back to who we are, the behaviors we expect, the standards we've set that we all commit to. And it becomes a lot easier to grow and scale because everyone understands who we are, what we're doing, why we do it, and how they contribute to it.
What would be an example of a set of standards that you would implement? or establish?
Yeah, no, of course. Company standards. What do we tolerate? Jim Rowling, mentor and incredible individual and business leader, which many people know.
I think it's awesome.
He would always say, it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. And you have to, as an organization, have non-negotiables. Right? We can talk about things, and there's things that, there's area for people to get creative and feel absolutely empowered in their role and bring their uniqueness. But then there's this foundation, fundamentals of non-negotiables. And if we have established these things, these standards, then everyone knows. And these are things that we must all commit to at every level. So simple things like, what does professionalism mean to us? Simple. I'm telling you, it's literally, I'm not a rocket scientist. Hello, anybody that thought so? It's such basic stuff, but we assume people know that. And especially today in the evolving business landscape, we have a lot of different generations all working together, and professionalism can look and sound very different. And so we have to establish, what does professionalism look like here to us? And this is a set standard that is a non-negotiable. We hire to that. We onboard to that, we coach on that, we hold people accountable to that, and we promote to that. Another standard could be something like accountability. A lot of people talk about accountability, but what does that actually mean? How am I holding you accountable? What's the process? Coaching conversations. Oh, you got to coach your people. I am a business leader that does not allow my team to make hiring decisions and then just decide someone's not the right fit. If you have chosen somebody, kind of got this from Mark Cuban, I think. If you choose someone on your team and they fail, it is your fault. So my team has a responsibility around accountability. So as a standard, we have set, what does accountability look like for us? What is the coaching process? How do we hold ourselves and each other accountable? And I've mapped that out with training and resources so they all understand. It's very simple standards. You can have a communication standard. What does communication look like? How do we speak to each other? Do we avoid tough conversations or do we face them head on? How do you speak you can say, oh, you know what? You can be direct but kind. And then you hear a conversation, you're thinking, that wasn't so kind. So setting those simple, basic standards as fundamental non-negotiables that you don't only talk about, but that you train to, can be a game changer in your business.
Awesome. From a tactic perspective, do you use or believe in like any of the personality tests, like a Myers-Briggs or anything like that? Is that something that you've toyed with? I know it's been on the fence.
I have. Listen, there are a lot of people that believe in those tools, and they've developed great teams using those tools. And I'm here for whatever works for you and your organization. And I think that's the whole message, is find what's authentic to you as a business leader and lean in hard and commit to that. But also don't be so rigid that if you find a team member that doesn't fit into the mold that you think that you need, there is some level of instinct, right? And emotional intelligence has to play a big role when you're a business leader leading people. And when I have found that using those types of tools can sometimes skew judgment, you can pass up really great candidates, or maybe even choose people that aren't the perfect fit, but because the test said so, you either hire them or don't. And for me, that's never been something that I have relied on personally. I'd rather create those internally based on exactly what we think and what we feel, and then using that. I want my leaders to feel empowered to select their team, and I don't want them to feel restrained by a test. So I'd rather just pave that path for them and help them understand what that looks like for us. But again, I think those tools can be great for other business leaders.
As I listen to you talk, and I see the value in everything, right? And as a business owner a couple times over, all small businesses, but I've always had teams, right? And I feel like that's been a really challenge for me is doing this type of work. And I think I'm going to use this quote. I can't remember where I got it. Maybe it was Chris Williamson, but I don't probably butcher it. But like type A people tend to be people who have chronic anxiety disorder that's geared towards productivity, right? Just really funny if you stop and think about it. Right? It's like it's not that glamorous, right? When you see type A people, but a lot of that is like the executives or the founders, right? And a lot of times this sounds like it's non-productive.
That's
This
right.
sounds like a non-productive way of using time. So when you're, essentially selling internally to other executives or, operators and things like that within the organizations you work in, how do you present this to them in a way? Be like, no, this is actually worth your time. And you mentioned a great stat, but even then they're like, well, I don't see the tie to revenue, right? Or I don't see the direct, I don't see a direct correlation or causation of the goal that I want at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter. So how do you sell this internally?
I think, and that's funny that you ask. I'm in private equity now, right? So I had to do that a bit, and I still do. Luckily, our group is very people and culture focused, which is wonderful. But there's a lot of talk around productivity and labor management and where are we spending our time and the ROI, and those conversations are healthy and important, and you have to have those. But the reality is, I refuse to sell my approach to the business. Luckily for me, and listen, I'm going to do this in two parts because I have a long history, proven history. And so it's a little different for me because most people that want me on their team choose me because they know what I've been able to do for a business. So I have that benefit. And luckily, early on in my career, people saw that in me and were willing to invest in that and trust. That gave me the space to build that kind of measurable career where you're saying, hey, I was the fixer. And how did I do it? Let me tell you, let me show you. And so I had the ability to prove it out. And then again, having been in the industry for so long, that's what I've become known for. So people go, oh, you don't bring Amber in to have, you bring Amber in to do her people thing. That's what you have her do, right? And I will say, even knowing that, coming into an environment where this was a different industry, I didn't know these guys. I was referred to them by a legend. So of course they're going to say, hey, if Jim believes in her, we're going to give her a shot. We believe in her. But I still had to be able to articulate what it is that we do, why it's important. And part of that conversation was, you have to trust me because that's the truth of it. And I have to have a plan and the strategy to show you what I'm doing with my time. I have to show you how it's going to impact the team, what the measurable outcomes will be. And then if we don't get there, what's the pivot plan so that I can continue maximizing this time that we've spent investing in our people. A good practice for individuals wanting to champion this and wanting to gain belief in this area is there's a lot, like I said, of statistics. You can Google, you can chat GPT it. There's a lot of information out there that does show the impact of high attrition on a company, the way that that directly impacts the customer or member experience, the way that directly impacts revenue, the way that directly impacts profitability. That is out there now. You need to come in and you need to have your plan and have every layer of it. High level going into the vision, right? Why are we going to do this? Why is it important to us? Tie it to your vision, mission, and values. Second is, what is it going to measurably do for the business? Then back it up with some statistics of companies that have done this and operated this way and have proven out their results. I also lean into, we test a lot of different things. We can't be afraid to fail fast and learn and grow, right? If we're comfortable doing that with different promos, different systems, different technology, why would we not be comfortable doing that with our people? So I tell anyone I talk to about a role, if I'm considering joining an organization or they're exploring me as a partner or, a leader, I'm always very transparent about how I operate. And because you can't put me in a room and say, hey, we're going to hire Amber to create spreadsheets and tell us about data all day, because I'm not the girl for you. That's not me. And so if you want me on your team, this is what you're going to get, but this is how I have to go about it. And it doesn't mean that other people can't do it better than me. But what I am going to tell you is, if you care about culture, you care about people, you want it to be palpable, you're serving customers, you want them to feel the difference, you want them to feel like they're a part of something that matters. Guess what? The more they come back, the more they invest, the more money we make. It's all connected. And so if you want that, then you got to let me go do my thing so that I could show you what we're capable of. And also, when you have culture and people as a strategy, it's sustainable and it's scalable. Where other people that may come in and do it a little bit differently, I see a little bit more of an ebb and a flow, right? Because when things get out of hand or things start to regress and you don't have the buy-in of the people, you don't have the championship team on the field, it makes it that much harder to turn things around. Is that answering your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And, when I think about it too, it's like at the executive level of, once you get to a certain size of company, I feel like people will get to be the executive of those size companies. So I'm talking about larger companies. They start to understand the value of culture and people, right? But as you're at kind of like the single location, 2 location, or even regional type, we're just talking about gym operators now, like maybe you don't see it yet. And maybe you have to actually sell yourself as the owner more than other people on your team. And I think that's what I'm kind of getting at selfishly, is like, how would I sell myself as I grow my own business on the importance of culture? Like, I love my team, right?
Yeah.
They're awesome. My business partner, Shan, Kim, Amanda, kudos to all you people. I love it, but I'm like, how could I be doing it better? How could I be providing them all the tools I need? They need, from a cultural perspective and clear, like, like you said, values and things that we tolerate or that we glorify and appreciate, like all that stuff. It's something you have to sell yourself on to take the time to do the exercise.
Yeah. I agree. And I think I am very transparent with my team and I am very humble, and I know that I'm going to learn a lot from them, and I want to be learning as long as I'm here. And I ask them what they need from me. I ask them what inspires them. I ask them what type of community they want to be a part of. I ask them what their future looks like, not in a way of like, design your 5-year plan for me or your 10. Let's just have a conversation and talk to me about what's important, what moves you, what inspires you. And I take that anecdotal data and I think about that, and I think about the ways that I can best serve them. And I also get to know my team on a very individual level. I still, I'm going into my 10th club. By the end of the year, we'll be at about 16. By the end of next year, we'll be at 25. We're growing rapidly. And every club has between, 50 and 80 team members. And I want to know my team. I read recently that the CEO of Chanel knows the name of every person on her team. I think she's like 3,000 team members. And I was like, ooh, I like your style, lady. So I still text and communicate directly with my team. I also create cohorts in my team. I identify people that will lift each other up and inspire each other, and I bring them together. And I either just do it in a very, unofficial way of, hey, I want you guys to get to know each other. I want you to build a relationship, because the stronger the relationships are, it's not just about me, and it can't be just about me, and it can't just be about you, Eric, and it can't just be about the business leader. When you show up and you know who you are and you know where you're going and you know why you do it and you know what's important to you and you do all the things that we've already talked about, you're naturally going to attract people that already like what you're showing, how you're showing up in the world. They're already going to want to be a part of it. The people that want to be a part of it are going to see that. They're going to feel it. Then you get them on the team, and it's, what do you do every day that demonstrates you being the example and showing how much you care? And that's transparency, that's authenticity, that's real relationships, that's listening, that's adjusting based on what they tell you. Not just asking them to say, oh, I checked a box and asked my team because I heard in a podcast that teams really need to feel heard. They feel heard when they see action, because you know what? They know that they have a voice. And I say, you have a voice and you have a seat at my table. And do you know how valuable that is? And now it's your responsibility to use that voice. I tell everyone at every level, everyone on my team is important. And so those are little things, again, that just kind of tactically, if you want to even call it that I do. And then what happens is that this incredible, like, cyclical thing, like, I put it out, it comes back to me. And then it just keeps growing. And then it grows beyond me, because then they're living and being the example. And they have this belief system. I like to think of myself like Ted Lasso. Yes, I do, sir. We sent that Ted Lasso believe gif out probably more than anything else. But there's this strong sense of belief and purpose. And I know those, and trust. And I know those words are used very often because it sounds nice. But the reality is the actions that bring those words to life are invaluable. Because everybody wants to feel like they're a part of something meaningful, where they matter, where they can make an impact, and where you can actually show them that they can grow and become bigger and more successful than they ever thought possible. And that happens all the time in my world. And it is what I show up for now every single day, is if I can take people that saw themselves or put barriers on themselves or a ceiling or didn't believe or couldn't even see it maybe, and I can cast all that away and with my leadership team help guide them to greatness. I mean, what a privilege, really.
Yeah. So that was an amazing mic drop moment, but I'm going to ruin it by asking you one more question. So I rarely get off of these without talking about artificial intelligence. And I was thinking as you were talking, because you mentioned GPT and, undoubtedly AI is going to have effects on company cultures. And it's probably too early to say like what exactly that's going to be. But like had someone on this podcast who, recently brought their development team down by almost 70%. Right. So it's only senior developers on the team. It's a tech company, if you haven't guessed. But are you starting to see AI's effect within cultures of companies yet? And if not, do you have any predictions or things that you would start to prepare for moving into the next 3 years? Because it's gonna, right? It's absolutely gonna. We just don't know what's gonna be yet.
Absolutely. You can't be afraid of it. You have to embrace it because it's here and it's coming. So you have to be prepared and you have to learn. And you have to look at your business and you have to see, how can this help elevate my business, streamline my business, make me more efficient while not losing the people, the heart, and the soul of my business. And, labor may come down and there may be jobs that aren't required. And that's the reality. And that's been the reality for decades now. Technology is real, when cell phones, and then it was computers. And then we're looking in the computers, we're going, I remember Y2K and everybody in a panic. And it's like, we're all still here and we're all still thriving for the most part. And we have to look at AI as the next iteration, and how do we incorporate AI into our business while we're still leaning into people. I have not seen technology impact culture in my space yet. We are already integrating AI to help the team evolve, because if these tools are available to you, why not move faster, further? Why not learn more? Why not do more? But for me, how I'm looking at technology is, how do I take the team that I have today, layer in technology that can support us, make us more efficient, and then refocus their time and effort to drive more impact, more engagement, to elevate the business, to increase revenues by spending our time doing more meaningful, impactful work that now they don't have to do because I have technology doing that part. So I'm really looking to balance it and say, hey, if I can increase my revenue because my team is now able to work more closely with members, to involve them in personal training or get them into group fitness programming or drive referrals or engage my community through corporate efforts and elevating local businesses with perk partnerships and popping up at the community, I'll get more business. So my business is benefiting. I don't have to compromise my people, and the busy work that my team doesn't have to do. Now they see that as a benefit. So that's how I'm approaching it. That's how we're approaching it. And again, as AI becomes more readily available, becomes more prevalent, becomes more of a part of the strategy. And we're working with new partners out there, V-Engage, V-Attract. We have a lot of partners out there that we've integrated into our business that we're really excited about because they've helped us be better. And now it's over the next 2-3 years looking at, how do I continue to learn? How do I develop my team so they understand? And then what does my org chart of the future look like, to where I can maintain the most important, impactful roles, not diminish my team or our impact or our culture, but really find ways to refine my business to be more efficient and effective.
Awesome. Well, last question for you today.
I'm not ready yet. Didn't you book us for 2 hours?
If people, what do you need help with? And I ask that in the spirit of, if people listen to this and they want to reach out to you, like, what would you like to hear from people about? What's important to you right now? And then where would you want them to go?
Hey, networking is so important. And I have a lot of friends who went to incredible colleges and, Harvard grads. And they say, of course, the education was great, but the network is invaluable. The people that I now have that are in my phone, I can call. And that's the reality. We have a responsibility to each other in this business to build our network. And so my door is always open. You can find me on LinkedIn, Amber Martinez, Gem Wellness Brands. And if you have stories, if you have struggles, if you have systems that are working for you, if you just want to work together to inspire each other, to share best practices so that we can all be better, I don't mind my knowledge. I don't mind my experience. It's available and out there for anybody that wants to use it, wants to learn, because, hey, listen, we're all in the people business. We're all here to make an impact on the world. Far too many people are still ill and not taking care of themselves. And although it's shifting slowly. And if we work together, we can elevate each other. So again, my door is open. I want to continue building my network. I want to support individuals out there, business leaders. And I also want to learn and grow in areas that maybe I'm not my best. And so I'm, just growing the network, being here for each other and making a bigger, deeper impact in this industry that we're all so passionate about. That's what I'm interested in.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Amber, for joining me. This has been it's been really insightful. I've enjoyed it and kind of opened my eyes to things I can do differently as a business owner. And I'm sure it did for a lot more people. So really enjoyed it. Ladies and gentlemen, Amber Martinez.
Thanks, Eric.